Hello and welcome to Small Town Big Business, a podcast about doing big business in small town USA. I'm your host, Allison Hasler with Southern Illinois Vacation Rentals.
And I'm Russell Williams. I'm director of Ethos. We're a small business incubator, co-working spaces, training and development center here in downtown Marion, Illinois. In fact, we welcome you to our location at the Citadel building, as I said, on Tower Square Plaza. And thank you to everybody who's listening and all of our sponsors that make the Small Town Big Business podcast possible. And that includes thank you to Arcadia Wealth Group, Fowler Heating and Cooling, Black Diamond Harley Davidson RV, Swinford Media Group, Watermark Auto Group Foundation, and of course, Union Street Arts.
And remember to hit that subscribe button wherever you listen to podcasts. It is free and you get notifications every 2 weeks when we release. If you're new to our podcast, welcome and thank you for joining us. We interview successful business owners in small towns to understand how and why they thrive in small towns across the Midwest. And today, our guest is...
our co-host, Allison Hasler, owner and operator of Southern Illinois Vacation Rentals. I would say welcome, Allison, but you were supposed to be here already as co-host.
Yes, and I feel very appreciated to be back in the hot seat. I was one of the very first, I believe,
we did
that
interviews.
We interviewed.
Yeah,
yes.
But that was a long time ago. That was almost
a lot has changed.
2 years ago, 50 episodes. That's a lot.
It is.
And we'll be talking about that later, but I'm excited to get to interview you. You're in the hot seat.
Yeah, it is. Like I said, a lot has changed in 2 years. It has been a really great journey, so I am excited to talk about it.
Good. So you ready for some real, big questions? And
I am.
Are you nervous?
I am not nervous. I'm excited.
Okay, so we're going to start before Southern Illinois Vacation Rental.
Yep.
Tell us up to that point of you starting that business. What was life like? Tell us about family. Tell us about why you're in Southern Illinois. Anything that you want to share with us.
Sure. So I can try to make this as quick as possible. I try to make the analogy that my life and career has been like a big ping pong machine, and I've kind of bounced around to a lot of different things. I did have a very steady 10-year career in public health. That's where my bachelor's degree and master's degree is in, so that was a long-standing period. But before that and after that, it was all kinds of different things. I was a correctional officer when we first moved down here to Southern Illinois from Central Illinois. I'm from the Effingham area, a little town called Newton. That's where my husband also is from. I was deployed through the National Guard, so I was deployed for 14 months through Paris, Illinois. It was the transportation company and we were deployed to Iraq. So when we came home, that's when we moved to Southern Illinois. Fast forward past the career in public health, we decided to, my husband also had just sold a business. So we were kind of in this.
Michael Hasler.
Yes, Michael Hasler.
Shout out to Michael.
He is a true entrepreneur. He built and operated a business called American Shoreline. When he sold that, there was a little bit of a sabbatical of what to do next. So we bought a 50-foot motor yacht to charter on Kentucky Lake. Yeah. Not very creative with the name. The name of the business was Kentucky Lake Boat Charters. It was a pleasure boat. It slept 10. It was beautiful, big. So we sponsored, or I guess you could say host, a lot of parties, family reunions, bachelorette parties, 40-year-old birthday parties, you name it, we were able to accommodate them.
And what years did you have that business?
So that was from 2000, I believe 16 to 2018, but there was actually 3 seasons in there. So
right, because that's about the time that you and I had met. We had met at a chamber function, Marion Chamber of Commerce, and I believe it was around that 16 to 18.
Yeah, I think so too. So we chartered those 3 seasons, and it was really fun. That was our introduction into the hospitality industry. And when you talk about hospitality, you are right there next to people. Yeah. There isn't enough space on a boat to really give them a lot of privacy. That is what we were doing. Very hospitable industry, and we loved it. We thought it was really, really fun, and of course, being on a boat, that was the novelty of it, right? And we also did Airbnb our boat when we weren't chartering. So we did get a little bit of taste of that too. But our kids were still young. They still needed daycare. We were still, we were needing to be there for every holiday, every weekend. And, that part of it got a little old. So we thought, there's got to be an easier way to do this, right? Yeah. An easier way to share with people things that we love. And so we reintroduced an idea that we had when we first moved to our plot of land that's about 12 acres.
Where's that at?
So it is south of Marion. It's south of the square, about 7 miles. And we decided that we would make some micro cabins on the back 5 acres of our property. And so that was in, I believe, 2018 is when we officially had them open, or the first 2 open. And then we had, so fast forward from there, I went back to work full time. Right about the same time, I had taken on a co-hosting of somebody else's property on the lake. So I had the 2 houses, or two cabins that we own, plus I was co-hosting somebody else's property, which essentially means the same thing that I'm doing right now, but a little bit bigger scale. That was in 2020, right when COVID was happening. I went back to work, and that's when I started working for the city.
City of Marion.
Yeah, City of Marion, for the mayor. And things just started to kind of grow and unravel in a very organic way. I had a couple of other people approach me about co-hosting their property because they just didn't have the time, or they were moving and they haven't been able to sell their property, just all different kinds of reasons. And so as I was moving forward in my career at the city, this management side of the business started to take off. And fast forward to 2022, there was that fork in the road. I had about 10 properties that I was managing. And then I also still had a full-time job. And it was coming to that point where I couldn't do both. And there was a decision that had to be made. So I made that decision to go all in with my business. And since then, so now we're in 2023, it doubled in size again. Wow. So we're now to 20 properties and several in the queue, somewhere in the neighborhood of 5 or 6. So we'll probably be at 30 by the end of the year. Yeah. And so it keeps growing. We're in a place of really pulling back and making sure that everything is of quality on the back end, so that everybody has a really great experience on the front end.
That's awesome.
So
and we're going to dig in some details about the vacation rental business and Illinois vacation rental. I want to back up just a little bit. So what was the time frame between you building, there were 2 micro cabins first on your own property, which the name of that business is?
That is Damn Near Lake of Egypt Cabins, not cussing. We are 1 mile from the dam, so it's a very cheeky name for a very delightful experience. Right. Is how we describe it. So
what's the timeline between you finishing those cabins and operating those to the time that you went beyond that, managing somebody else's?
So there was about 2 years of really turning those 2 cabins, and then we had a third on site that we knew that we were going to build, but we were cash flowing everything ourselves. So we're very scrappy. We're very conservative with our finances. So we were holding off on the third cabin so that we could recoup the cost of and the expenses of the first 2, because we were also building out the infrastructure, right? So the driveway, the plumbing, the electrical, all of those things were also being built into this property on the back 5 acres.
And the lake also.
Yes. So then, and the lake came when the third cabin came.
Right,
so
on
that's
your own property,
yes,
not
on
like
a
a Lake of Egypt, but a lake there. Yeah.
So we built out a 1.5 acre pond.
Right.
Lake might be a stretch, but
I was trying to help you out,
So there was about 2 years there where I dug into what it meant to be a super host on Airbnb, what it meant to be have the benefits of direct booking and building out our own website and doing our own marketing, and then also cross listing on multiple platforms. So you've got your VRBO and Furnished Finders and all these obscure ones that you may never heard of, Lodge Lovers. And so how you sync all of those things without causing a nightmare for yourself.
Right.
So during those 2 years, I was really fine-tuning all of those little pieces in there, everything from dynamic pricing to the logistics of laundry and all of those little pieces.
Yeah, that's amazing. And then again, timeline from the time that you had your first outside your own property business that you were going to manage a home on Lake of Egypt, right?
Yep.
To today. So we'll say that this is spring of 2022. So is that just about 1 year in between, or how much time is that?
So by the end, at 2022, at the end of 2022,
or 21.
I'm sorry, 21.
Yeah.
Woo,
Yeah,
man,
It's 20.
These years have flown
Yeah,
fast.
I said it was spring of 2022, but it's really spring of 2023
spring of 20
today. Yes.
So from 2020 to 2021, we went from 2 owned and 1 managed property to 3 owned and 8 managed properties with several in the queue.
Yeah.
And that's when I had to make that decision. So we over doubled in that first year of taking on that management piece.
Yeah. Did you have any idea?
No, I didn't. And, at the first of the year, you had a leadership meeting, or tell me what it's called.
The mastermind retreat?
So you had a mastermind retreat at the beginning of this year that I was a part of, and we had a group session. And in this group session, I disclosed that, I remember one of the first masterminds that I took with you was the based on the One Thing book. So that was probably 4 years ago?
2018.
Okay, so it was 4 years ago, going on 5 years ago, that we took this One Thing book. And I remember writing out my 5-year plan. My 5-year plan was to have 6 cabins on our property.
Okay, yeah.
My mind couldn't fathom anything bigger than that, right? And so now, even though we will probably add more cabins at some point, there is this whole big different business that I could not have even thought of 5 years ago. But it was that one thing and setting myself into goal-oriented mode that led me there. So taking on that management side was, you know what? This may not be an owned property, but this is going to help with cash flow and getting me to that goal of the 6 cabins. And so that was the original thought of it was, I can do this. I can take on a little bit extra work and time. I've done it with the 2 cabins. So what's a third, right? Just for that little extra cash flow. And then as that cash flow became multiple properties, I saw that this is a business that's needed here. They're all over. Short-term property management is all over the place in Florida and in Tennessee and all of the big places that people go on vacation. But it isn't so much known around here. So it was really filling a gap that was needed and being able to be one of the first. I'm sure I won't be the last. I'm sure we'll have others that will come in and specialize in that as well. But yeah, that's how it started. And it's so very cool that how what a little side hustle piece of the business became the front and center big umbrella of the business, and now the cabins are just one little piece under that umbrella.
So were you paying attention to the hospitality industry, tourism industry here in Southern Illinois, and you saw an opportunity there, or was it mainly you were a pioneer in that, you were ahead of that tourism growth? Yeah.
So, having the luxury of being in a very, very community oriented positions, right? So I have in my career field have always been in very public and, networking style businesses. And I've always had my, ear to the ground on the tourism side and what we're doing to promote Southern Illinois. And I've always had the mindset of there is an infinite amount of visitors. We just need to know how to reach them. And that with an infinite amount of tourism, then there is plenty of space for new short-term rentals to enter the market and succeed. Now, coming up, I've read that we're entering a very slow season because the market has been oversaturated and people are slowing down their travel because of the inflation and all these other things. But you know what? I'm keeping my nose to the ground and gonna go forward anyway.
Yeah. Well, one of those early pioneers for cabin rentals here in Southern Illinois was Doug DeVore.
Yeah,
and
friend of ours.
We know Doug, right? And did you meet Doug through Mastermind? Because I met Doug through Mastermind.
No.
Or you guys were in two separate masterminds.
Yeah, we've never done a mastermind together, but we met through you and connected through you because we were both in your masterminds and have become, good friends.
So Doug's moved on, to more real estate investments in the Chattanooga, Tennessee area, but he had been the owner of Shawnee Forest Cabins and a couple other cabins throughout Southern Illinois. What did he add to you? Was he someone that you could ask questions to? What did he give you some wisdom and insights? What?
Yeah, so it's really interesting because I have found a lot of mentors in this industry, and it's funny because it's just like any other industry. You can meet people that feel that scarcity mindset and they are not willing to mentor you because they see you as a competition. And then there's others that are willing to provide all the information because they see that you're in their industry and they want you to succeed, right? So, and I am to that mindset of, if we all look good in Southern Illinois and somebody comes down and has a really great experience or comes up or wherever they're from, they're going to come back and they're going to share with their friends and family that it was a great experience here. So the likelihood of them only going to that one place is really unlikely. Maybe their next time it's unavailable and they have to go somewhere else. So for all of us to look good and to be our best is going to make the entire community more successful. And that's what I learned from Doug. He is definitely an abundance mindset type of guy. He gave me a lot of really good information about how to scale, how to reinvest, and when I am ready to do more investing, what that looks like in the real estate market when it is something that you are not living in, right? So those commercial lending and things like that, and just the more creative ways that you can either partner with investors and make it work and be very conservative still and, very scrappy, and learning what those return on investments look like, right? Like what is your cap rate? What is it? Capitalization rate? All of these numbers and all of these investment terms that I was unfamiliar with, Doug showed me and walked me through those, which was really amazing.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, you're a great learner. Does that come from experience in your life? Because you had a lot of experiences prior to do what you're doing now, including the military. Are those some of those like being able to learn things? Because not all people are able to grow in the ways that you're able. I've seen you grow, Allison, whether it was in masterminds or between masterminds. Yeah. And so where do you think that comes from?
That's a really good question. I think part of it is that I love accepting a challenge. And most times when I accept a challenge, it's something that I know nothing about. And I am very ignorant in that space. And there's nothing else that I can do but learn, right? So, I guess that is a way that I have a desire to learn is through those challenges, through, gosh, what does it feel like to be vulnerable? What does it feel like to push yourself out of your comfort zone? Those sort of things that I've learned in Mastermind. I thrive off of those to help me through those challenges.
Yeah. And then you've also spoken about the imposter syndrome. Somewhat. I know that we did Live to Lead together where you were one of the stage presenters and you talked about the imposter syndrome. So folks that may be know something about
Yep.
that, have experienced that, or may not know what they're experiencing. Can you
Yeah.
explain a little bit more about
Oh, sure.
your experience with imposter syndrome?
Yeah, well, the true expert is probably the author, Brene Brown. So she talks about imposter syndrome a lot, and I highly recommend any of her books. But yeah, the imposter syndrome is really kind of feeling like you are not meant to be where you are because you don't have the credentials. Yeah. And, I go through that all the time. Even still, I've learned to accept it and understand where it's coming from and that deep sense of insecurity and where you are. But I've learned to embrace it and understand that doesn't identify me. Mm-hmm. That's just a way that my brain negatively self-talks. Mm-hmm. And so, that imposter syndrome is, I think, very normal, and I've talked about it a lot in public presentations because I do want to normalize that and make people not feel so alone if they feel that. When they walk into a networking room and they're like, oh my gosh, no one's going to talk to me. This is like, I am so out of my element, or, those sort of feelings that you get when you're in a space that is not familiar to you or that's not in your comfort zone. That's when they really show up. But you can have it in your day-to-day life too. Whether you're a baker or a candlestick maker, it can happen. And especially when you start looking around to seeing other people's successes, then you go down that very scary path of comparing yourself to other people in your industry. And it's definitely not healthy, and it's not a place to keep your energy, because when you let your energy go there, then you don't have the energy to focus on thriving yourself.
Right.
Yeah.
So would you say breaking through that barrier has been one of the keys of success
100%.
for you? Okay.
Yeah, 100%. And anytime that I have noticed myself like, oh gosh, I'm starting to feel that, I notice that it's because I'm monitoring competition, or I'm monitoring what others are doing in other states that I think look more creative than what I could offer, or they seem to have like a great marketing, versus what we're doing right now, or something like that. Then I've learned to just shut it off.
Right.
I'm not learning if it's making me feel less about myself. So I'll just unfollow, shut it down, get it out of my life, and then get focused on, let's make this the best that it can be.
Yeah. Good.
So.
Are there other keys of success that maybe particular the way you felt about yourself, or how you might be a business owner? Yeah. Are there some breakthroughs there too that you can? Oh man.
Yeah. I've learned so many things about myself and how what not to do.
Don't we all? Yeah.
In the last couple of years, I've learned, and this is in any industry, not every person is your client. Not every person is meant to be a partnership or a person for you. And I had to learn that the hard way. Yeah. What I like to say, I ignored my spidey senses a few times, and I, just because the house fit my, tagline of unique, boutique, or luxury, but those spidey senses kind of went off with the personality type that didn't really gel well with me as far as the property owner. Well, the property owner is my client, not the house. So, and then having to, struggle through that relationship and realize that 80% of my energy is going towards, less than 20% of my, my portfolio. Right. Then you have to cut that. And that's really hard. And it's a lot harder to do that than just to say no thank you from the beginning.
Sure.
And so I've learned to say no thank you from the beginning a lot. And I've done that a lot better in the last couple of months, because now we're to a point of growth that we do have to be very selective, because we're trying to build capacity and learn from those from that growth, because we're going to put the same amount of energy in a house that brings us a small amount of money as we do something that brings us a lot of money. Yeah. And so we have to be really selective in that. But even if it's a house that is, looks beautiful and I know is going to be a great addition to our portfolio, if it's not the right fit with the client, then we just have to say no.
Yeah.
And that has been really hard for me because I'm appreciation is my love language,
pleaser,
and I like that pat on the head. I like being able to say yes to everything and everyone. Sure. And I've learned that just is not healthy. It's not healthy for your business. It's not healthy for your psyche, your spirituality. So I've had, again, with tripling in size and growing in size in the last couple of years, I've had to learn that the hard way, but that's probably one of the most valuable lessons that I've learned that I'm going to be able to move forward with. Yeah. And like I said, I think that goes for any industry, that you can really accept that not everybody is going to be your client.
Right.
And to trust those instincts. I'm sure a wedding planner, if they're meeting with somebody that's already acting like a bridezilla, it's not worth the money to put your energy behind all of that. They can go somewhere else and you can bring on somebody that's going to be a lot easier to work with. Yeah. So, yeah.
It's funny that you mentioned spidey senses because it reminds me that you've called me a few times saying, okay, Russ, give me your advice and you'll explain what the situation is. And then I'll listen, and then I'll give you a little bit of feedback. It's mainly what you have already said. It's like, well, I hear you saying this, so you should stick to this. And then you'll end the conversation by saying, yeah, that's what my spidey senses had told me. I just need to talk to somebody else.
I just need to flush it out sometimes. Yeah, and it's great because you've been an excellent soundboard, and that's why you're a great facilitator of masterminds, because you do help people get to their answers with a lot more clarity than being in your own head. So, of course, I appreciate you in your leadership position with that, and of course, as a friend as well.
Let's talk about small town business, like your small town business, because a lot of our listeners and watchers are either in that small town business game, wherever they may be, or they want to be. They're thinking about something, or they're just a consumer shopper. It's part of life here. So tell us about how it's unique for you. Tell us about if you've received any support in your community to develop a small town, big business. Share some of those things with us.
Sure. So, if I was to look at the research and say, okay, so, and even though it happened very organically for me to fall into this position of a short-term rental property manager or management company, the research shows that doesn't exist in small towns, right? So if I would have just researched it all and looked at what was provided, that I would have said, oh, if it doesn't exist, then that means it doesn't work. So I might as well not even try. And luckily, I wasn't really doing that kind of research. It was really just an organic growth. But with that being said, doing this in a small town has been really, really interesting. And, there are a lot of challenges with it. One of them being logistical challenges, because we are a very spread out community, right? So a lot of mentors that I have across, the all the way from the Golden Coast to the Florida coast and North Carolina. All of them are in very metropolitan areas where they're like, oh, well, if you're having a laundry logistical issue, just hire a laundry service that does the drop off and pickup, and they only charge, X amount per pound. And I'm like, yeah, I would have to create that business too. That doesn't exist here. So there are those kind of logistical challenges, but with the community itself and the support, that has probably been my one reason for growth that I just never expected to have, because we are such a tight-knit community. And when I say tight-knit, I'm not saying that I'm BFFs with every single person in Marion and the surrounding area, but because we're so small and people know each other, and there's such a small degree of separation between each person, whether it's professional or if it's because my son goes to swim with their daughter and we get to know each other on that level. Those connections are, I feel like, so much stronger in our area and in a small town versus if we were in this metropolitan area. So I have never once advertised for property management. So those clients have come to me because of referrals in our community and in our network. And it's just people that, trust that I'm doing a good job and trust that I'm not going to let them down by having, or hurt their reputation by referring people to me and then letting them down. So that has been a huge help because our networks are so interrelated, from our family to our house of worship to our professional careers and through the bigger pieces like SIU and the hospital systems in our area and things like that. Those are so interconnected that that is where all of my business has come from.
Right.
So it's really exciting. So I get to focus on how do we just put heads in beds, and how do we make that guest experience the best possible in this area.
Right. Talk about your properties. So
Sure.
talk from, a little bit about your properties from what you own to what you manage under Southern Illinois Vacation Rentals and give us a picture of what those look like.
So I'm not a creative person. I'm a very linear thinker. I like strategic planning. I like doing the all of those types of things. I'm not a creative, loving the decor piece, like decorating and doing all that stuff. So if you look at my cabins and you look at tiny house on Pinterest and start searching, you're pretty much going to see the same thing. So we originally designed our cabins based on looking at what was available in Southern Illinois at the time, which was, really in two buckets. We had your traditional Victorian style bed and breakfasts that were mainly in town, but a few out of town. And then we had your lodgy, campy, lodge lovers style cabins, and not really anything in between. So I decided that I wanted to put, if we're going to do cabins, I want to book a cabin that stands out that I know I would book myself. Okay. And so we really designed it around basically an inner city avatar of myself. Okay. And as we started moving into that management piece, we kept it there. The avatar changed a little bit. It was a little bit more, I could get very specific with my avatar, but it was a very specific person that we're trying to reach. But when we started adding pieces, I wanted to make sure that whether somebody was spending the night because they were a couple or a couple with their children staying in our cabins, but then they wanted to come down with their parents or with a group of friends and stay in another property of ours, I wanted to know that they had the same quality as our cabins. So although we have different sizes of different things, so we have properties that sleep all the way to 19 at this point, all the way down to 2. Yep. So I basically decided that, okay, if it has to fit in one of these 3 buckets in order to make be part of our portfolio, and that is unique, boutique, or luxury. So we have, I believe by the time this is is out, we will have our most unique piece, which is going to be a luxury yurt in Southern Illinois.
What?
A yurt.
I don't know what that is.
It is the most creative glamping experience that you could imagine. So details to come, but it needs to be unique enough to stand out like that. Boutique, which is where our cabins come in. We have 3 new A-frames that are coming in that are just Instagrammably adorable, or luxury, where a lot of our properties on Lake of Egypt are. So those are the luxury pieces of it. So even though we're not just concentrated on Lake of Egypt with these big, beautiful houses, it's got to fit in one of those 3 buckets. So that is where I keep that in mind of, if I was in Chicago and I wanted to have a girls' trip that regardless of which I chose of Southern Illinois Vacation Rentals, I'm going to get the same high quality experience that I'm going to get no matter which one I choose. Yeah. So it doesn't matter which one I choose. They're all going to be great experiences. It's just going to depend on what amenities I want the most.
Right. That's awesome. Geography, where are the cabins located?
Oh, man. Okay, so they are, like I said, most of them are concentrated around the Marion, Lake of Egypt area. Okay. Obviously, that's where we live. That's where I live. That's where where it's naturally concentrated. But we have, as of right now, as of this recording, we have all the way east to Elizabethtown, Illinois. So that is an hour east of here.
On the Ohio River.
That is on the Ohio River, yes. So we have one, going to be another in Elizabethtown. So that's the farthest east we have. And then the farthest west we have is McCanda as of right now. We've looked at a few places in Murfreesboro, and a little farther that way, but as of right now, it is McCanda. So, and in fact, on the west side of McCanda.
That's awesome. Yeah. Where do people go to see the properties?
So you can just type in Southern Illinois Vacation Rentals, and you'll get you right there. But if you want to go the fast track, we do have a shortened domain name, is sivr.rentals, and it gets you to the same place.
Great. And I've seen your website. It looks fantastic. You talked about keeping it up to date, new photos and everything like that. So I loved how it worked. I said to you earlier that it's intuitive. So the next question that you have in mind when you're trying to find out if a property is right for you is usually just right there. It's the next thing. So I love that.
Good deal.
So what is Allison, what's your favorite part about being a business owner?
My favorite part about being a business owner is having my own schedule, which I can tell you is a blessing and a curse. Mm-hmm. After a very busy sink or swim style last summer, we had talked about that a lot offline, but essentially what it boils down to is that I didn't have scaling methods, because what worked at 10 properties, not all of those pieces scaled to 20 properties. Right. So I didn't have anybody on board yet, and all of these things that were very, it comes with any growth in any industry, that you have to scale, you have to pivot, you have to change your business in order for those things to happen. And I was trying to figure it out. So I was trying to learn how to swim while I was already in deep water. What happened after that, and I hired a really great person that was my front end communications manager. She's also taking care of a lot of my lake properties. So I hired somebody, and then I went into a season of rest, and you can call it adrenal fatigue, whatever it was, because I was in fight or flight syndrome all summer long. But I could not get enough sleep. Mm-hmm. And when you've had careers outside of yourself for most of your life, like I've had a 9-to-5 job most of my career, most of my adult life, except for the last 3.5 years. So I was feeling so guilty about sleeping in, about piddling around the house and not really having a productive day here and there. And but the money still comes in, and there's still pieces in play that were being taken care of. I just felt like I was doing kind of a bare minimum, and I had to really let that piece go. That I'm no longer working for anybody else. I am my own boss. Yes, and if I stay here for too long, I'm not going to be my own boss anymore because I won't have a business. Right. But you do get to decide when there's a time of rest and when there's a time of hustle. Yeah. And you don't have to be in hustle mode 100% of the time, 100% of the year. Right. And I really did have to learn that the hard way myself. Yeah. Because I like to be in hustle mode all the time. And when my body said, nope, we're resting, and I couldn't, I'm like, I don't know what's going on. Am I depressed? Am I, going, do I have some adrenal something or other that I need to get medicine for? I had no idea, but it was really just my body said, no, it's time to rest. Right. And I had to make that mental shift into accepting that and giving myself grace
Yeah.
for rest.
Right.
And now that we're in our official slow season, at this time of this recording,
Right.
which is in the winter months, it is, I've accepted and embraced that much more, where I can work on some really quality back end things before we get really busy. But I can also take some time to enjoy just with my family.
Yeah.
And that has been the really greatest thing. So we homeschool.
Yeah.
So I'm a homeschool teacher
Yeah.
also. So I split my time between homeschooling my 2 kids and being a business owner.
That's
so
awesome.
that's probably been the best piece of being able to be my own boss, because when I know when that ebb and flow season is coming up and that the period of slowness comes in, then, we just flew out to New England not that long ago and spent time with my sister and her family. And we were able to take off whenever we decided that was the best time for us, instead of, putting in and getting approval and, all of those types of things.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, I know you, Allison, as more than just a small business owner, and I know there's other things that are important to you, including your own family, your kids, Lance and Larkin.
Yep.
Or Larkin and Lance, to put them in order. And of course,
order.
Michael, right?
Yeah.
And so what else is important to you outside the business?
Oh, man. So outside of the business, really leaning into this piece of growth for my family, that has been what centers all of this, is what is best for our family and what is best for having our kids, is homeschooling the best for them? And at this point in time, it is yes. And being able to allow them to be exposed to so many different things and so many different opportunities that we wouldn't really have the opportunity if we were on a traditional schedule with traditional public school and things like that. So those things are so important to me. My faith is definitely important to me. I'm actually listening to, the 365-day podcast of the Bible right now, and it's been really fun. I'm not Catholic, but I'm actually listening to a Catholic priest doing it in the catechism, if I'm saying
Catechism.
the catechism. But it's been really fun, and he's just a really great explainer of things. So
good.
So those are the really big pieces for me.
And many people know you around here because you're the founder of the 100 plus women who give.
Yes, 100 women who give.
Right.
100 women who care is the official title.
And I know that's very important to you also.
Yeah. So, I have been a person that has been in the weeds with a lot of different things and a lot of different pieces of the community and, a lot of networking things. But I've realized the older that I get, the more, I guess you could say, protective of my time I have been. And so I'm slowly dialing back those pieces. But one of the things that really made a profound impact on my life is finding out about these chapters called 100 Women Who Care. And there's actually 100 Men Who Care, and there's all of these different chapters across the United States that's called 100 Who Care. So I was able to take a couple of really great people to help me start this journey in Williamson County and start this Williamson County chapter. And most of them are county-based or in the metropolitan areas. They may be neighborhood or city-based. But we did a 100 Women Who Care for Williamson County. It has been very successful. We have officially raised, let's see, we've had 3, so we are slightly over budget, but if you average it out, we have hit our $10,000 every time that we've gotten together to give, and we give to a nonprofit that serves our community. So it's a very simple design. Each person that gives is giving $100, so we get as many women there as possible, hoping for 100 or more, and we're able to give to a community service organization, which is
and
powerful.
then there's another one in Jackson County that sprung from the Williamson County.
Yeah, so we met with them in 2021, I believe. And we had a leader, a community leader that was interested in starting Jackson County. So we kind of gave him all of the information that we had and said, here you go. This is what we've learned, what we have acquired. Take it and run with it. Let us know if you need any support. And they have had so far 2, and I know that they're going to have more. So they have had a really great, successful event as well. So it's amazing.
Well, Allison, it's been a pleasure to interview my co-host. Is there anything else you wanted to share?
Are we ready for our announcement?
I think we're pretty close to the announcement. So you rest for a minute because I'll get to say some things here. I want to say some things here too. And so one of the reasons we wanted to interview Allison Hasler, not just because she's a successful businesswoman, which she is, but also because we have an announcement to make here on Small Town Big Business. After 2 years of recording Small Town Big Business, which we are going to go on, don't worry about that. But Allison is retiring from Small Town as a co-host of Small Town Big Business. So this is your farewell episode also.
It is my farewell episode.
I've already cried before many times thinking because you gave us a little bit of notice ahead of time.
Yes.
But I want to talk about our journey just a little bit before we said our goodbyes. And this did start over 2 years ago. I'm going to break the fourth wall here and talk to Luke O'Neill.
Yeah.
So Luke and you and I were
sitting in Crown Brew.
Yeah, it did. Yeah. I think the final meeting before we finally pulled the trigger was in Crown Brew Coffee. Yeah. But we had talked online. We had talked in every time in devotional groups on Friday morning at Crown Brew. At that time, you were working for the city of Marion, and you were community director.
Yep. Community programs director.
Yeah, community programs director. So the idea came about, how do you market, in particular Marion, how do you market what's going to happen here at Ethos Small Business Incubator, which at that time was just an idea, I think. Well, we had a building, but just an idea of what might go into it. And so, we started talking, and you really wrote the concept for us, the project proposal.
Yeah.
You put it on paper for us.
Put it on paper, and we fine-tuned from there, definitely. So it was definitely a group effort. I don't want to take any credit. It was over several months because like most things in life, we talk about what's our things that we want to do in life, and starting a podcast was one of those things that we shared together. How to do that, I had no idea, right? So that we had to bring in Luke that had the recording experience. I still think about my avatar that I had in there, and it was a male, early 30s, late 20s, stuck in traffic, driving to a job that they have a long commute and they really don't enjoy, but have a lot of ideas in their head. And how do you reach that person? What do you tell them to say there's a better quality of life out there, and we're willing to support it here in Marion and in Southern Illinois? Yeah. And so that was that avatar that spoke to me the most. But it was also, the people that that are here now, whether they're high schoolers or they are, budding entrepreneurs, or they have those ideas in their head, but they're not quite sure how to flush them out, or if they should take that next step into starting their own business. But it's like, okay, how do we break that barrier and let them know that not only do businesses do okay in rural areas, but they thrive and they do really well. And they're able to support their families. They're able to leave legacies. They're able to do all of these things. And what better way than to put it online and interview the ones that are successful, right?
Well, we had a great location, we thought. This corner office that overlooks Tower Square Plaza, where there are many different renovations and restorations, including this building this year. We just thought that would be really cool to, it felt really good and positive to be in a space like this at Ethos at the Citadel. But we recorded that first one in May of 2021, and then it was released in June of 2021, almost 2 years ago. Do you remember who we interviewed first?
Absolutely. It was the mayor.
It was the mayor, Mike Absher.
Yeah. Still the mayor?
Still the mayor, yep. Getting ready to run again. And so, it's been an awesome, positive experience. 50 episodes over 2 years. Lots of interviews.
That's hard to believe.
Yeah, we've interviewed a lot of people, successful business owners, Marion, Carterville, Harrisburg. Rob Landis is in Harrisburg, Carbondale, and then kind of a little bit beyond that too, with ideas of keep on growing and keep on stretching. So I want to thank you first, because when you made the commitment, you did work for the city of Marion, as you explained during this interview, that God stretched you beyond that, and you had to make a major decision. Like, if I keep doing this, then I'm kind of going to be, putting the sunset on the business, the vacation rental that you really didn't know about when you took the position at City of Marion. And so that had a purpose, of a commitment to the City of Marion and serving well our community. So therefore, the small town, big business fell in line with that. But after you knew that you would have to go on and be full-time in your business, that you continue to commit to the small town, big business. So you've been coming here 2 mornings each month, full mornings of 2 interviews each morning. So we record 4 a month. And I just appreciate that commitment, because you didn't have to do that, and you did it for another year. And so thank you so much.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate that. And and it's been interesting because, after the business started to take off, after I left the city, and, I was thinking about this. I'm like, okay, even if it is just half a day, every other week is when we record. So we, record 2 episodes at a time. And let's say that let's pretend that I work 40 hours a week, so that's 80 hours divided by 80 hours. So 4 divided by 80 is 5%, right? Not a lot of time commitment, but at the time I was starting to get really overwhelmed and really felt stretched then, when it started to be put on my heart that it's like, okay, I think it's time to let it go, Allison. It's time to retire it. But what kept me holding on for sure when I was in that sink or swim mode is that every time that we had an interview, it was like, wow, I am so energized. I am so excited for not only their business, but they're motivating me to improve my business in ways that I didn't think about. So it was really a tough decision for me, because I absolutely love meeting these people, and even the ones that we know, that we know personally, have been listening to their story and listening to their challenges and the reasons that they love being a business owner was just so energizing and rejuvenating for me as a business owner. So it was just a really, really tough call. But in the end, again, with my mastermind, or with your mastermind that I attended.
They're ours.
My one word for this year, and the one thing, is simplify.
Awesome.
And simplify means cutting out any of those extracurriculars and really zoning in on what matters most for my business growth. And as much as it's great for me to talk about, Southern Illinois Vacation Rentals as a co-host, there are ways that I can really zone in, and I'm ready to take that leap and simplify things. And simplifying means, narrowing it down to being a teacher for my children, spiritually and literally for them, and also being the best business owner that I can be.
Well, I've said this to you before. In fact, I think I said it at the mastermind retreat that, I could have took that in different ways when you let me know that you needed to put the sunset on this role, because we've been doing this for a while now. I mean, like consistently getting together and doing something, at first doing something kind of scary that we had never done before. But I think we started.
When we even had to take lessons.
Tell us about that.
So we took improv class, an improv workshop with Casey Lachelle, who is who actually was educated through the Second City Comedy of Chicago, which is very prestigious. That's where Chris Farley got to start.
Exactly.
So many people.
Belushi and everybody.
So she built a curriculum around confidence building based on her experience of stand-up improv. And oh my gosh, what an amazing experience that was. So we individually had workshop time, and then we came together so that we could kind of get a better back and forth between the two of us, a better banter, I guess. And I think it proved itself well and proved itself worthy. So
it was fun and scary.
Yeah.
And Casey did great and got me to do things I'd never done before or wouldn't do in front of somebody else.
Oh man, I found it therapeutic.
I thought it was we did one
amazing.
on rapport. And so, I would say that we got a lot better at this.
And that's a plug for her if she's in the area. If anybody wants to take a improv to help their presentation skills in their professional or personal life, I would definitely look her up.
Yeah, but I do wish you the best.
Thank you.
When you told me, I was like, that is awesome because you're making a hard decision. That because I think you've loved doing this.
Yeah.
And so I think that anytime that we go from good to great.
Yep.
Right. And we simplify.
Yep.
And focus on that one thing. That's always the right decision.
Yeah.
And nobody else can tell you that. You have to determine that for yourself. And so, but I support you and I appreciate you, love you, and just want to thank you.
Well, I will say that even though I don't. My son explained to me that your son suggested a little grave box. A coffin.
Yeah.
Sitting in my seat. I don't think that's necessary because I'm pretty sure that, moving my seat out of the way is going to let in a lot of really awesome opportunities that I am super excited about listening to, maybe even being involved with in the back end or in some way supporting. So I'm just super excited about it.
I think we'll have you back on the show.
Yeah, it'll be fun.
That'd be fun. So Luke and I can we do this on camera? Yeah, sure. We've got something to give to you before you go.
Oh, you do? Oh my gosh, you guys.
That's so cool.
That's gonna make me cry. Oh my goodness. Do I get to read these on air? Do I get to open this up?
That's just for you. You better not read them on there.
Okay. I will probably cry. So I will leave these until we are offline. Man, thank you very much. I'm going to move these a little bit forward so that we can still see each other. Or maybe backwards because
there you go.
My camera's still right there.
Yeah.
There we go.
Yep.
Man,
so cool. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yep.
I truly, truly appreciate it. And man, this has been such an amazing experience.
Yeah.
And it's definitely because it is not because I don't enjoy our time doing this project.
Yeah.
It has simply been making those hard decisions in order to grow.
Yeah.
And that's what it's all about.
That's awesome. That's so good. You still have to do our closing today.
Oh, okay. I will.
Hey, I want to thank everybody, including Allison, for being part of the small town big business community. Thank you for listening and watching us, especially our sponsors. We, of course, want to thank Arcadia Wealth Group, Fowler Heating and Cooling, Black Diamond Harley Davidson and RV, the Swinford Media Group, Watermark Auto Group Foundation, and Luke O'Neill at Union Street Arts for being our producer. If you want to know more about Ethos, Small Business Incubator, co-working spaces, training and development here at the Citadel building, you can contact me. I'm Russell Williams, and the email is russell@watermarkethos.org, or you can go to our website, which is ethosmarion.org.
And please remember to subscribe wherever you're listening to this podcast. Remember, subscribing is free, and you can listen to upcoming episodes that will continue every 2 weeks.
I'm Russell Williams.
And I'm Allison Hasler. Thank you so much for listening.